So good morning, this is Sunanda from G. Pullareddy Engineering College. So I would like to describe regarding the Python data types. So here we will mainly concentrate on the number, string and the list. This video will describe the different data types like a number, string and the list in Python. So when we go with the data types concept in Python, so here we don't go with the declaration part of a variable before using it. So without a declaration, based upon the value we assign to the variable, the data type will be fixed. So we will be mainly categorizing these data types into 7. So of all these 7, we will again divide them into 2 types based upon the data storage. So simple data types and data structures. Simple data types like strings, numbers, booleans and date and time will store the data as a single value. Coming to the data structures, we can even call them as containers, as they will store the data in bulk. Right? So the list, tuple and dictionaries comes under the data structures. Right? So these all 7 data types again divided into 3 models. So that means based upon the storage, we will be taking all these data types and mainly concentrating on how the data will be stored. And in the update model, we'll check how the data will be updated. And in the access model, based upon the accessing, these particular 7 data types will be divided. Okay, so we have the data type categories, 3 models. So of all these 3 models, storage model, update model and access model. In the storage model, the model mainly concentrate on the data storage, whether you are storing a single value or multiple values. So if the data type stores a single value, then it comes under the literal or scalar. So here the numbers and the string data types comes under literal or scalar storage model. And coming to the containers, list, tuples and the dictionaries, as they are capable of storing multiple values, so they come under container storage model. And coming to the update model, based upon the data changed, based upon the changing of the data within a particular variable, we will be dividing into mutable and immutable. Mutable data items will change their value through the program execution, whereas immutable cannot change their value throughout the program execution. List and the dictionaries comes under the mutable, and number, strings and the tuples comes under the immutable. Right? So based upon accessing, we will be dividing the data types into 3 models: direct, sequence and the mapping. So the numbers can be directly accessed from the variable. So the numbers comes under the direct access model. Whereas the strings, list and the tuples, each and every data item in a string, list and the tuples will be having some index value which will be in a sequential manner. And if you want to have an access to the elements of a strings, list and the tuples, you have to follow the sequence of index. So they come under the sequence access model. And the dictionaries, the values will be stored in the key value pair. So the elements in the dictionaries are stored in the form of the key colon value. Right? So key value pair. So if you want to have an access to any value based upon its key, the value will be accessed. So every key will be mapped with its own value. So that's why here the dictionaries comes under the mapping access model. So of all these data types, we mainly concentrate on the number, strings, list and tuples and the dictionaries. So the storage, updation and the access of all these data types will change based upon the data we are storing. Right? So First one is integers. So here integers are nothing but the numbers. The whole numbers as well as integers, positives and negatives along with the 0, we call them as integers. So without a decimal point, called as integers. Numbers without decimal values, digits without decimal values, both inclusion of both negative and positive along with the 0, we call them as integers, right? The values can be positives as well as negative values. Integers have unlimited size in Python. So here we don't have any size limit in Python. So based upon your processor, whether it is 64-bit or 32-bit, the size will be fixed. So here we don't concentrate on the size. So the size is no matter here, right? So based upon your processor size, that is 64 or 32-bit, the size of the data types will be fixed, right? So here I am considering a variable called as n1. So I am storing a value n1 equal to assigning an integer 10 to a variable n1. So now n1 data type is integer. So if you want to know the data type of any variable, just use a function called as a type and mention the variable name. So I want to know the data type of this n1. So what I need to do, type of the variable n1. So it gives the output as the class colon int. So here every data type will be having internally some built-in class. So whenever you use that particular type, the particular value assigned to a variable, so that variable will acquire all the properties of that class which is being built in by the interpreter internally. So whenever you use you want to know the data type of any variable, just use a function type and give that particular variable name. It gives the output as class colon and whatever the data type. If it is an integer, it mentions int. If it is a float, it gives a class float. If it is a string, it gives class str. If it is a list, it gives list, class list, like that. So based upon the value you are storing in a variable, the data type will be fixed. So this is a positive value, and this is how you can assign the negative value. Just mention the sign minus and then mention whatever the way digit you want to give. So whenever you mention like this, it will be considered as a negative value. And there is one property where you can delete or remove the particular variable from the memory using del space n1. So if you want to delete multiple variables at a time, then you can use del property n1 comma n2. Now these two variables will be removed from the memory. So del is mainly used for removing a specific variable from the memory, right? So next is an octal literal, hexadecimal literal, and then the binary. So here whenever you are considering an integer, we mainly concentrate on the numbers having the power 10. That means the normal integer values, right? Base 10. So here when you want to convert that particular normal integers to an octal format, that means a base 8, or to the hexadecimal base 16, or to a binary format base 2, then you will be having some set of notations, right? So if you want to indicate an octal number, just use a prefix 0 capital O or 0 small o before a particular number, then that will be considered as an octal value by the interpreter. So just if you want to differentiate the number, different formats of a number, say if you want to mention it as a normal integer, then just assign an integer value. If you want to indicate an octal, then just you have to prefix with 0 O or 0 capital O. If you want to if you want to indicate some particular number as an hexadecimal, then you have to prefix with 0x or 0 capital X. So here I am considering n3 equal to 0 O101. Now what is the format I am using? 0 O, that indicates octal, that means base 8. So 101 will be internally converted into the octal format like 101, 1 will be multiplied with 1 into 8 power of 0 plus 0 into 8 power of 1 plus 1 into 8 power of 2. So this is a 64 into 1 plus 0 plus 1 into 1. So this becomes as 65. So this is how it internally converts. So when you mention just an octal format, it will convert into a normal number and then it will print. So as this is not a readable format, we cannot understand. As it is a simple number, we are unable to understand it. If it is a large number with the combinations of all the bits, then we cannot understand. So that's why internally it will be converting this octal to the normal integer and it will print that particular value for us. Next is a hexadecimal literal with the base 16 is a, here we will be prefixing with a 0x or 0 capital X. So here I have considered 0x101. So 101 will be considered. So first 1 into 16 power of 0 plus 0 into 16 power of 1 plus 1 into 16 power of 2. So that is 16 square is 256 plus 0 plus 1. So it gives an output as 257 like that. So based upon the notation you are using internally, it will consider whether it should be base 8 or base 16 or base 2, and then it will convert internally and it will give the normal integer that is readable by the user, right? So next is a binary literal, that is a base 2. So here you will be prefixing with 0 capital B or 0B. So this is a notation of the binary format or a binary number. So here whenever you consider 0B 111, here what the interpreter internally do is, it based upon the prefix, it comes to understand whether it is a binary, octal or hexadecimal. So that's why it will take the 111. Again what base 2, so that's why 1 into 2 power of 0. So next 1 into 2 power of 1 plus 1 into 2 square. That means 4 plus 2 plus 1. So what will be the output? 7. So that is what it prints for us, right? So if you want to convert one format to the another form, so that means I have an hexadecimal, I want to convert into octal. I have a binary format, I want to convert into hexadecimal. So to whatever the form you want to convert, you can convert based upon the functions. So if you want to convert any value to an hexadecimal, then you have a function hex. If you want to convert that particular value into the octal format, then we have OCT, right? If you want to convert any value to the binary, we have the function called as a bin. So these are all the three functions which are used for conversion of the numbers into different formats. For the octal you have OCT. If you want to convert to the hexadecimal, you have HEX, and if you want to convert into the binary format, you have the bin function. So these are all the three functions we have for the conversions, internal conversions, right? So coming to the floating point numbers, the other form of the numbers. So without the decimal values, we call them as integers. With the decimal values, we call them as floats. So that means whenever we have some values in the form of the decimals, so then that particular numbers we call them as a floating values, floating point numbers. So the notation is here float, right? So for example, I have the example for the notation of the floating value numbers is, so we will be taking like n1 equal to 7.3. This is 7.3. So this is a floating value. So 7, after 7 we have the decimal point and then we have another value. So this is a representation of the float values, right? So if you have the largest notation, there is another notation called as a scientific notation. So the scientific notation is mainly used to represent the floating values in the highest powers. So 10th power, if you have the many values after the decimal, like if I have like 7.3037 something 334 like this, if I have after the dot, after the decimal value, if I have multiple values, I want to represent in a shorthand notation, in a scientific notation. In that we will be representing using this E3, notation. This we call it as a scientific notation. So where E or small e or capital E mainly signifies the 10th power. So that means if I have like 6.2 E3, that indicates 6.2 into 10 power of 3. So E will be changed to the 10 and this 3 indicates the power. Now it becomes as what will be the output here? 6200 will be the output. Say for example, if have 6 7 some 2 6 E4, so 6.26 into 10 power of 4 will be the output. So this is how it will internally convert. So every scientific notation internally will be converted to the 10th power, right? So this is a notation of the floating values or floating point numbers in the Python. So if you have the scientific notation, then there is a possibility of using the ETH notation, or we can internally what this particular E indicates, it indicates as 10th power. And the next type of the numbers we have are the complex numbers. This is an extra one we have in Python. So the notation here will be having a real part and the imaginary number. So the notation will be in the form of the A plus BJ, where A is a float and the real part. A will be maybe considered as a floating value or the integer value, and it is a real part. And whereas a B is may also be a float or the integer, and it's an imaginary part. B is an imaginary part, and the J or capital J is a square root of an imaginary number, that is -1. So the representation is A plus BJ is a representation of a complex number in Python. So we can perform the multiple operations here like addition, subtraction and the multiplication of two complex numbers. And here I have considered just A equal to 2 plus 5j, B equal to 4 minus 2j. Now I am adding these two, then I will be getting the value, like all the real values will be added first, and based upon the sign plus minus gives, so as plus 5 minus 2, so 5 minus 2 gives the 3. So the largest value, imaginary value 5 is having the plus symbol, so I got the plus here. So the J value, whatever the imaginary part I have, just get into the output here. So just it will add the real part and then it will add the imaginary part, right? So there are some conversions, like if I have an integer I want to convert into the float, I have a float I want to convert into integer, I have an integer I want to convert into the complex, like that. If you want to have a number conversions, then we have mainly three types of the functions here. So first function is the int, which is used for the conversion of any value to the integer. So any value means either the float value will be converted into the integer, that's it. You cannot convert a string into the integer, you cannot convert complex into the integer, you can just convert a floating value into the integer, then you have a function called as a int. So int have 6.3, so what it do is it will remove whatever the values we have after the decimal, these values will be removed and only the integer part will be the output here. And then I have we will be having a function called as a float, which is used for the conversion of an integer to a floating value. So here you will be giving an integer as an input to this particular function, which it will convert it into the floating value. Here the integer is converted into the float just by keeping some dot 0 to it, right? So next we have the function called as a complex, and complex of x comma y. So it will be, if it can take either the one parameter or the two parameters. So if it is taking only one parameter, then it consider it as an imaginary real part, but no imaginary part over there. So if it is taking two parameters, first parameter is considered as a real and the next parameter is considered as an imaginary part. So here I have considered the complex of x. So here it will convert this x to the complex number. So the real part with the real part is x and the imaginary part will be the 0. So the complex of 6, here 6 plus 0j will be the output. So the no imaginary part. So if you give only one parameter, that will be considered as a real part, the imaginary part will be considered as 0 here. Next is complex of x comma y. So here you are considering two parameters. The first one is considered as a real value and the second one is considered as an imaginary part. So whenever you take like complex of 6 comma 3, 6 is considered as a real and 3 is an imaginary part. So the output is 6 plus 3j will be the output. Right? So this is how you can convert one type of a number to the another number. So next we go with the other data type called as a string. So string is nothing but a collection of the characters. So here we consider it as a collection of unique code characters. That means it is a combination of the different characters, not only the alphabets, the special characters, numbers, everything, every special character, every special symbol, numbers, letters, all the combined thing which we call it as a string here. Right? So we enclose a string in a single or the double quotations. So if you want to represent anything as a string, just enclose it in a single quotation or the double quotation. Right? If a string is enclosed in a single quotation, that means if it is have a single quote within that particular string, that means if we have a string which has to have some quotation within it, then in such a case we will be using a backslash before it. Example S2, it doesn't look good at all. This is a string name. So the whole string is being enclosed within a single quotation. Now I want the output to be printed the same itself, does int. So this quotation has to be printed as itself. It has to consider. So whenever you take like this, it will give an output like a syntax error, invalid syntax, because when there is a single quotation or double quotation, so first it checks with the match. So here I have opened a single quotation. Now here it is a one single quotation. So it will consider this as one string and it will be ignoring this, but here it is again checking with this particular quotation which doesn't have its match. So that's why it is giving an error saying syntax. It's again is the syntax of a string. So that's why if at all you want some set of these quotations within your string, then you have to prefix it with a backslash. So now it accepts this. Now what it consider is, it will be considered as an escape character. So this particular quotation will be mapped with this particular quotation. That's it. So the mapping is done and this will be considered an extra quotation and it will print like it doesn't look good at all. So now it will consider this quotation and it will print the same string as it is without giving any error. Right? So this is what you have to consider whenever you are working with the strings. And then for the strings, as we have already seen, the strings are the sequential data types. If you want to have an access to the strings, then each and every character of a string will be having some index value and you will be using that index value and you will be accessing those characters from the string. So here in Python we have the two types of indices, positive index and the negative index. So the positive index starts from the first character of a string, goes up to the last character of the string. The starting of the positive index will be the 0 and the last index, that means the last character index, will be length of the string minus length minus 1, length of the string minus 1. Whereas coming to the negative index, it will start from the last of your string. So the last character will be assigned -1 and it goes on up to the first character. Negative character will start from the last character. The positive index will start from the first character. Okay, negative will start from the last character, positive will start from the first character. Negative will start from -1, it goes up to length of the string. Okay, whereas the positive will start from the first character, it goes up to last character, having the index length of the string -1. right? So coming to the operations you can perform on the string is, you can perform the concatenation. That means you can combine the two strings into the one. So here when we have the plus operator, so whenever you apply the plus on the two integers, it will add and it will give the sum value, right? Whereas this plus in the this particular strings, it will combine them. So yeah, I have the two strings, hello, s1 equal to hello, s2 equal to how are you. Now I want to combine these two strings. What I do, s1 plus s2, so just it will add on, it will combine, and it will form the third string, which is a combination of the both s1 and s2. Hello, how are you will be the printed, right? So next, repetition. So here in for the numbers, if you apply this asterisk symbol, it's a multiplication, right? Whereas here it is used for the repetition purpose. So here we will be calling it as repetition operator. So hi, I want this particular string to be repeated 5 times or 10 times or 20 times. Just I need to mention that particular string into 5 or into 10 or into 20. Then it goes on repeated for how many times you specify here, that many times the string will be repeated, right? And next, getting the size of a string. If you want to know the size of a string, size is nothing but number of characters in a string along with the white space will be considered as the size. Okay, so the length of the string will be used to know the number of characters in a string. We have a function called as len. So len of that I have mentioned hi world. So this is one character, second character, and white space is a third character. W is at fourth character. This is the fifth character. 6. Next, L is at 7, and 8 is and eighth character is a D. So totally how many characters I have? 8. So the length is 8. So size of a string can be known using the function len. Next, we have the slicing. Slicing is nothing but getting some part of a string. So if you want to perform the operations on a string, you can perform when you perform the operations on a string, it will mainly affect the string. That means the characters in a string may be modified, or the particular string format may changes. So that's why what we do is, we will just go to some part of a string and we will perform some operations on it. So here we will be doing the slicing process using the syntax. Within the brackets you have to mention start index colon end index colon step. Right, so just mention before that I have taken a string. So for this string I want to perform the slicing. That means I want to get only a part of it. So the program of 3:5. Now what it do? So whenever I consider the program, so first index is 0, second index 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, so now 3:5, as I mentioned, that means the starting index, and this is the end index. So end index minus 1, up to that it goes. The step default value will be the 1. So the default value of step is 1. The end index is last index minus 1 or length minus 1. So whatever you want you can consider. Next, start index is 0. Default value. These are the default values. If you mention some values like 3:5, here the starting index I have mentioned is 3. Now last index is 5. So that means it goes up to 3, 4. Only 2 indices will be considered. Now this is a starting index. Up to which index it goes? Up to this. So steps, how many steps have? Default is 1. So after G it goes to the R, and now it will print GR will be the output. Now let us consider this string hi, and then some space is there, right? Next HELLO. Now this is 0 at the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. right? So here 4 colon 6. So what is here, it goes to the 4th index, next it increment to the 5th index. So last index what I have mentioned 6, that's why it will be incremented up to 5, so it won't consider the 6th index. So what are the indices, what are the characters at the index 4? E. The character at the index 5 is L. So this is the output for the hi hello string. So this is what we call it as a slicing. Next we have a function called as str, which is used for conversion of the non-string characters into the strings. Like there may be some integer strings, that means an integer which is within the quotations, that we call it as an integer string. A floating string, that means a floating value within the quotation, we call it as a floating string. So these types of the strings, if you want to convert into the strings, then you can use this particular function called as a str. Say for example, I have considered s equal to 1 2 3. Now print hello plus s, that means I am concatenating this particular string. What is this s? It is an integer. So hello, the string is concatenated with the integer, so it is not done, so it gives an error called as a type error. This is an runtime exception saying that cannot convert integer object to the string, that means integer cannot be converted to the string. So that's why what you have to do, first you have to convert this s into the str, that means a string. So str of s, so what it has been converted, so string number is been converted to the string. Now when you perform, either you can go like this or you can directly use hello plus str of s. Now this s, the str of 1 2 3, so will be converted into 1 2 3. So hello plus 1 2 3, what will be the output? Just concatenating. So hello 1 2 3 will be the output. This is an output string which we got, right? So after the concatenation, so whenever you want to convert any integer string or the float string into the normal strings, then you can use a function called as str. And then we have some built-in functions for working on the string. We have a function called as a capitalize, which is used to capitalize the first letter of a string. So if you have a string and if you want to convert that particular string's first letter to the capital or uppercase, then you can use a capitalize. Next is center, which is used to fill some characters before and after the string. That means you can pad a string with set of the characters, so it will return a string padded with the fill character with the original string centered. So here what we do is, say for example, I have some method, so the string name I'm been considering is Python is my string name. I am considering some width and the fill character, so that means I have been considering some width as, so here I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 characters in this particular string. So I want it like a width is 10 is the width, and the fill character what I have considering is, say for example, a is a fill character. Now what it will give output is a. So what is the size I have taken? 10. So here I have the Python, which is 6 letters, so Python. So after returning the Python, it will prefix it with 2 a's and it will suffix it with the 2 a's. Now the total length of this will be what? 10. So what is the fill character I have considering? A. So here it will return the string padded with the fill character. So the padding is nothing but before the original string and after the original string some characters will be filled. Now this particular whatever the main string we have will be at the center of this fill character. So this is how it returns. Okay, now if you want to count the number of occurrences, that means within a string if you want to count how many times a particular character has occurred, or within a statement you want to check how many times a particular string has occurred. In that case, you can use this particular count method. So count str, which will check number of times this str has occurred within a string. So beginning, b indicates the beginning index, n indicates the end index. So it will start from the starting index 0 to ending index up to length of the string. It goes on. It will check, or it will count how many times str has occurred in a string. Next is ends with. So if you want to check whether a particular string is ending with some special character or some substring, then in such a case you can go with ends with. So if I want to check, like I want to check whether Python is being ending with on or not. So in that case, what I can do, so Python dot ends with so I will be giving what I want to check whether it is ending with on or not. So I will be giving the suffix as on, and I will be checking I will be giving these index values. So beginning 0, start. So starting from the first 0th index, it goes on up to the last index. It will check whether it is ending with on or not. If it is, then it gives true, otherwise it gives false. Okay, so next if you want to find a particular string, so whether it is a substring of a string or not, whether it is available within a string or not, within a statement or not, in that case you can use this find, which determines if str occurs in a string or not. Next is all-num. So if you want to check whether the string is an alphanumeric, whether it is having alphanumeric characters, like if I take like GPREC 1 2 3, this is an alphanumeric. Okay, in that case it gives the true, otherwise it gives a false. So it should be the combination of alphabets and the numeric values. And then is alpha. So here it will check whether the number is whether the string is having only alphabets or not. So for example, if I consider the same for this example, if I consider this also, GPR is 1 2 3, it gives false. If I consider only GPR is, then it will give the true. That means the string should use or should be consisting of only the characters within it. No numbers should be within a particular string. And the other particular methods are is digit. So it checks whether the string is having only digits or not. Like, so within the quotation, if I mention 1 2 3, this is. So next is lower. It checks whether the string is having only lowercase letters or not. So is upper. It checks whether a particular string is having only uppercase letters. So is title. It returns true if the string is properly title case. That means every first letter of the word should be capitalized. So if I take like a GPREC college. So here this is a whole string. It is having the two words. So GPREC is one word and college is one word. So is title, what it do is it will check the first letter of the each word. If it is capitalized, it will return true, otherwise it will return false. Join, which is used for joining the two strings. So that means it is used to merge the string representations with the elements in a sequence, SCQ, and form a new string. That means for the concatenation purpose we will be using this join. Next is the lower. So this is used for conversion of the uppercase letters into the lowercase. If I take like GPREC, so here G is a capitalized, so it will convert into small letter, and remaining are all the lowercase, so all will be considered as it is, and it will print the output. Next we have the upper, which is used for conversion of the lowercase to the uppercase. If I take like a G, P or E capital C, so here it will convert the remaining small case letters, that means lowercase letters, into the uppercase, and whatever the uppercase we have, it will be kept as it is. So the output will be capital G, capital P, capital R, capital E, capital C. Next, we have the two other methods called encode and the decode, which are mainly used for the encoding purpose and the decoding purpose. This is used for the communication purpose. If you want to send your data to someone else, you just encode it, and then you send it to that particular person. Then he uses this decode function, and then he comes to understand what message you have been sent. So here it is used for the encryption and the decryption purpose. So these two methods will help us for the conversion or for communication in between the two persons with secret information. So this is all regarding the strings, numbers, data types. Thank you.